It is common to think that when viewing film, it is simply the spectator immersing themselves in the drama on screen, passively viewing the film, forgetting themselves as they are caught up in the events taking place. However, a structural inversion can take place whereby the film looks back at us. Objects on screen start to possess their own gaze that stares back at us, making us uncomfortable and questioning our relation to the film. We will explore how exactly this inversion takes place and why exactly it is so disturbing for us. For Jacques Lacan, it is because it gives us a glimpse of something he calls the real. Firstly, we will consider how the gaze is commonly understood. This is where the gaze is simply the viewpoint of the spectators. The gaze is that of the spectators, looking at the drama on screen. However, the film is typically so immersive that the spectator forgets that they are sitting in a room, surrounded by others, watching a film. The dark lights, the large screens, the moving images, all of this captures our attention so well that we become blinded to what is in reality around us. It is just as if we were in Plato's cave, where our eyes are fixated on the dancing shadows on the screen before us, and we become totally oblivious to the world outside of the room that we are in. This ability we have to totally immerse ourselves in the images on screen and identify with the camera gives us a sense of mastery over what we are perceiving. Think, for example, the way that cinema commonly caters to the male desire, whereby the male protagonist gazes upon the female as if she were an object in his field of vision. He controls her, he is seen as master, and her simply as an attractive object to satisfy his desires. Hence, the spectator of the film, who identifies with the male protagonist, adopts this view for themselves. They are able to vicariously adopt a sense of mastery over women, something which they may lack in real life, but can temporarily experience by immersing themselves in films that objectify women. This identification with images on screen is reminiscent of Lacan's idea of the mirror stage in childhood. During early childhood, the child lacks a solid sense of identity, but seeing themselves in the mirror, they develop a self-image and an ego. They recognize themselves as the image in the mirror rather than the confusion that is their mind. This is similar in film when the spectator identifies with the images on screen in order to distract oneself from their mind, typically fraught with troubles. The images on screen provide a sense of mastery which they otherwise lack. However, desire for mastery is not the governing human desire, at least for Lacan. This view of power and mastery as the main human drive is more so adopted by Friedrich Nietzsche and Michel Foucault. For Lacan, what we actually desire is to be in service of the other. What we desire is to understand the secret of the other. Lacan says that when we perceive others, we perceive what he calls their jouissance. Excuse my French if that's bad pronunciation. But jouissance can roughly be thought of as their secret which makes them happy, but which we lack. We see famous people, we see leaders and successful people, and we think that they possess some hidden secret that is the cause of their success and happiness. We desperately desire, we need to know what the secret object is that they possess, so we can share in their jouissance. Lacan calls this secret object the object petit a. Again, excuse my French if that's bad pronunciation. This is the mysterious object that we attribute to the other when we see their jouissance. But it doesn't actually exist. We endlessly seek this object, but will never actually discover it. Yet, we still desire it. This is why desire for power is not the main drive for human behaviour. Power never provides total satisfaction, since even if one has total power over another, there is always the feeling that the other possesses the object petit a, the object that we eternally desire, but forever lack. The classical example is that of the master envying his slave, as the master believes that the slave has access to a jouissance that power cannot provide. So overall, it is not mastery over the other that we desire, but it is access to their jouissance that we desire. It is access to their joy, their drive, their secret in life. But since we can never know this, as it doesn't actually exist, when we look upon the other, there is a blank spot. We can never obtain total mastery over the other or the object or actor on screen, since in their gaze there is something inexplicable, namely the object petit a, that which lies behind their desire, their gaze, their jouissance. Something important has happened here. An inversion has taken place. The viewers can no longer immerse themselves fully in the film, acting as masters over the characters and objects presented on screen. Now there is a blank spot regarding the other's desire. We cannot place it in a symbolic context. We cannot explain it as it is, by nature, beyond our grasp. So we spend the film trying to understand this mysterious desire of the other. It seems like the film is looking back at us, asking us, what is it that I want? The gaze has inverted. The film now looks upon the spectator as they are asked the question of what it is that the other in the film really desires. Sometimes in cinema the answer is given to us on a plate, but occasionally this ambiguity is retained throughout the length of the film, leading to a unique and unnerving experience for the viewer. For example, in Steven Spielberg's film Duel, the identity of the truck driver is never revealed. Their gaze is never explained. We are left in the dark about what the truck driver wants from the man. Because the viewer cannot explain the desire behind the driver's gaze, namely what it is the driver wants from the man, we do not ever attain mastery over the images on screen. It's as if the truck driver is looking at us through the screen, asking us, what is it that I desire? And the answer is, you will never know. Another good example presented by Todd McGowan is in Schindler's List, whereby the guard in the tower begins shooting at the prisoners. The camera looks up at Goethe, the shooter, but cannot capture his gaze, or more particularly, what it is that the gaze wants. We are left, like the prisoners, running from the bullets, frantically trying to figure out what it is the gaze wants. However, the scary thing is that we have no way of knowing what the gaze wants, and even Goethe himself does not know why he shoots, who he shoots. These violent scenes in which the spectator is unable to place what they are seeing in a symbolic context are a staple in the films of Lars von Trier. In Trier's films, shocking, grotesque scenes are depicted which interrupts the imaginary harmony we typically feel when watching a film. Think back to when we felt totally immersed in films and had a comfortable sense of mastery over what we are seeing on screen. For example, the scenes of mutilation in Antichrist and those of murder in The House That Jack Built, both films of Lars von Trier, they both rip us out of a comfortable viewing experience, and we feel ourselves as being perceived by the film and by those around us. The film looks back at us, and it is almost jokingly watching us try to make sense of what we are watching, but we fail to make any sense of it. And also, if there are people around us, we feel conscious as if they are watching us, judging us, asking us how we are going to react to these horrific scenes on film. This is evident in how common it is for critics to storm out of the theatre in protest when Trier's films are first screened. It is clear that in Trier's films, this inversion takes place too, where the spectator feels as if they are being watched instead of the other way around. The horror and dread we feel when watching Trier's films reflect the discomfort we feel when this structural inversion of the viewing experience takes place, as it is so different to our normal, comfortable experience in the cinema. These shocking scenes, which cannot be placed by the spectator into a symbolic or imaginary context, give us a glimpse into something that lies beyond both of these registers, something Lacan calls the real. For Lacan, reality has a triadic structure. It has three parts. There is the imaginary register, the symbolic register, and finally, the real. The real resists explanation since it is distinct from the other two registers. It is the unstable core of reality that the symbolic and the imaginary dance around and attempt to give some structure to. We get glimpses of the real when symbolic and imaginary reality break down. The real is so alien to us, so different from the humdrum of everyday life that encounters with it are shocking and anxiety-inducing for us. This is precisely what occurs when we witness grotesque, shocking scenes in film or even in real life. These scenes are so distinct from normal reality, in which nothing ever truly shocks us, where everything always has an explanation or a meaning behind it, or some form of rationalization. It is in these disturbing scenes where we get a glimpse of the real, and this is what explains the unique feeling of horror and dread when we witness these scenes. The real is encountered not only in shocking scenes, but also when the film looks back at us. When the gaze stares back at us, but we cannot locate it. We cannot understand what it wants, what it desires. We encounter the real, similar to how we did previously, whereby we cannot explain the gaze and what it wants. We cannot place it in a symbolic or an imaginary context. Just as we saw in Jewel and Schindler's List, in which the gaze cannot be pinpointed, where we do not know what the gaze wants, we are left in the dark, frantically trying to explain it, to give it some symbolic meaning or description. But when we fail, like the prisoners in the camp in Schindler's List, we become traumatized as we encounter the real aspect of the gaze that resists any symbolization, that resists any explanation, that has no rationale behind it. This unstable, traumatic aspect of reality that the symbolic and imaginary cannot capture, this is where the real lies. And this explains why any encounter with it is so shocking and provides us with such a unique, unnerving and powerful feeling of anxiety and dread. Films that offer us glimpses of the real through the use of shocking scenes and inversion, where the gaze looks back at us, are able to provide us with a deeply unique and disturbing viewing experience that truly sticks with us. Thank you for watching. I hope you found the video interesting, and do leave any questions or comments that you may have down below. Thank you again, and goodbye.